While everyone was celebrating the holiday weekend, there was some very strange activity going on between St. Louis, Missouri and South Florida. There was a plane that took off and had as its destination Fort Lauderdale. Fort Lauderdale lost communications with this aircraft, and two Strike Eagles were scrambled out of Homestead to intercept the aircraft. It had flown a course down to Fort Myers and then directly across the Everglades to a point about 30 to 40 miles south of Mar-a-Lago, where it then continued out to sea. Are you ready for this? 300 miles, where it's being reported that the pilots of the Strike Eagles said they saw it nosedive into the ocean. Now, 300 miles offshore, especially when it took off in St. Louis, is a hell of a long way. I've done kind of some rudimentary math on this, and this thing flew about 1,300 miles. It has a maximum range of about 2,000. So I doubt it would have taken off with that much fuel. For a trip much longer than that, you don't usually overload your aircraft with more fuel than what you need. I mean, you put some extra in, but none of that flight path should have taken it over the ocean. And I'm going to zoom this out real quick to kind of give everyone a ballpark of what we're talking about here. So the plane ended up crashing out beyond the Bahamas. It came pretty much straight down out of St. Louis, came down the west coast of Florida, came down to Fort Myers, made a turn, found 75 in the Glades, came straight across 75. Now, as you can see, that's quite a way south of Mar-a-Lago. This is when they dispatched the fighters out of Homestead. Homestead's down here. And they intercepted it out here. Now, this aircraft is not just some normal little Cessna. It is an 8-seater, $4 million executive jet that can fly at Mach 0.75, has a very high ceiling, 45,000 feet. For an aircraft like this, just let me qualify this. All of the aircraft that I'm going to show you today that are like this are just representations of it. None of these pictures are of the actual aircraft, so don't take anything away from tail numbers. But this story has been all over. This is Stripes. And each story makes a very specific point to say that the Strike Eagles did not shoot it down. It's just an odd thing. If there was somebody going after our leader, that they would have just continued a straight course 300 miles out to sea, and then when intercepted, just went nose down into the water. Doesn't really make a whole hell of a lot of sense. Basically, the logic is this: whoever was flying this aircraft thought it would be better to nosedive into the sea than get shot out of the sky or land safely like somewhere in the Bahamas. Now, the idea that it was on autopilot and maybe there was some type of a medical event where the pilot couldn't do anything is not really realistic, because it was flying straight and level until the F-15s intercepted, and then it was very clear that somebody was in control of the aircraft, because the pilots reported it then made a very steep decline, went straight down into the water. I haven't been able to make any ties to Missouri. That's the weird part. But the pilot is a guy named Juan Carlos Mejia something or other. And I'm wondering if that's just the name of the pilot, because the plane itself is registered to this thing called Hypo Consulting. Now, if you go to chamberofcommerce.com, Hypo Consulting, 1444 Pasley Place, Lantana, Florida, is listed as a cleanup service. This is 1444 Paisley Place. It's a $6 million mansion. Here's the actual path of the aircraft. Here's St. Louis up here. And here's where the report belongs to Hypo Consulting. Flies down. This is about Fort Myers. Turns down to 75 here and then comes straight out. I'm not sure what they're alleging with this white line. I really don't, because the fighters came out of Homestead. And clearly this is Kings Bay, Jacksonville, Mayport area up here. So this made blurbs on different reporting sites, but none of the big names here at YouTube have picked this up. So after 4 days, I thought I might as well. Now here's the weird part. Manta has Hypo Consulting as a scientific consultants company. Records show established in 2009, incorporated in Florida. Estimates show this company has an annual revenue of $62,000 and employs a staff of approximately 1. Listed at 1444 Paisley Place, Lantana, Florida 33462. Once again, nobody making $62,000 a year lives at 1444 Paisley Place. This is one of the premier properties. I mean, it's not Mar-a-Lago, but it's right up there. Let me see if I can get the specifics on this. 6 bedrooms, 7 bathrooms, 4 garages, heated pool, jacuzzi, access to the channel, boat dock, 1,100 square meters of living area, total 3,900 square meters. I don't know what that is in square feet, but somebody will figure it out. But the pictures of this place are nothing short of palatial, even by Florida standards, in that region. When I had alleged earlier about the people from Weston and Hialeah and Doral, the rich Venezuelans, this is right up on par with them. So yeah, this jet was registered to this company, this Hypo Consulting, reporting 1 employee making $62,000 a year, but at an address that is just not believable. $6 million mansion. And this is in Boca, in case you want to look for this. This is in Boca Raton, Florida. This is even farther south. And then, of course, it's also a cleanup services company. So you have to wonder, you really do have to wonder what they were getting rid of. That they picked it up, St. Louis, flew all the way to basically Fort Myers, made a turn, came across the Everglades, 50 miles south of Mar-a-Lago, and then kept a straight line. Now, I mean, there's no reports of this. It's just speculation. But based on what's being reported from the pilots, when they intercepted it, they saw it make some erratic altitude and speed changes and then eventually plummet into the water. So this thing didn't just run out of fuel unmanned and then just glide basically straight down into the water, which would have been the case. So someone was aboard. So there was this thought that I had that, maybe somebody set the thing on autopilot, set it to fly out to sea, and then maybe something was on board that was really horrible, maybe connected with Ebola or something. Just a thought. And then jumped out over the Bahamas somewhere. But the reports of the pilots of the Strike Eagles don't jive with that. Of course, they could have been generalizing. It's very, very hard to say, but It just seems very odd. 300 miles out to sea, to have had enough fuel on board to fly from St. Louis. Let's see if I can bring that up again. To fly all the way from St. Louis up here, south, across Kentucky, Tennessee, Alabama, parts of Georgia, Florida, all the way down to the west coast of Florida. Turn, go across the Glades, and then fly 300 miles out way past the Bahamas and crash is just weird. There's just something not right about this. It doesn't even sound like someone depressed, like, trying to commit suicide. It's just very, very odd. And especially when you add in the fact of who the plane was owned by. Something was going on. If they were trying to go out to the president, that doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense because they were, they made the turn in Florida way far south. They stayed, it almost like they tried to stay out of presidential airspace as far as they could. And from my understanding, this was Friday that this happened. The current leader was up in D.C. for Memorial Day festivities. So he wasn't even in the region, and pretty much the entire world knew that. So we're going to keep an eye on this. But this also, the jet too, this wasn't some little, this was a $4 million corporate jet. It's clearly no match for an F-15, but as far as commercial aircraft goes, there's only a couple out there that are even remotely like it. There's, Learjet makes one, that's a little bit faster and a little bit farther range. But it's right up there. So if it was only one person on board, then you would have to assume they had cargo. It wasn't reported that the jet was stolen either. So it took off legit. And the only problem came when about an hour before all this went down in Florida, they lost communications with it. And that's when they scrambled the F-15s. So everything was allegedly cool with this all the way to the point where it got into Florida. So we're going to keep an eye on this, and of course the situation with Ebola as well. Last night was the premiere of The Hot Zone. And I thought maybe in the next video we would discuss some of the finer points of what we saw in that. I believe it's on again tonight, and it's going to be 2 hours, 3 nights in a row. So they're not going to drag this thing out, but Nat Geo is kind of a pain in the ass to get. You can't buy it directly streaming like you can other channels. So you've got to kind of work your way around it. They'll give you a free pass for an hour if you have like a Roku TV. Basically what you've got to do is you've got to install Nat Geo, that streaming channel, and then get your free pass, and then watch for an hour, and then delete the channel, and then reinstall the channel on your Roku, and then get your free hour again. So I know that's not probably legal, but it is what it is. So anyway, we will leave it there. Like, share, subscribe. Thank you so much. We'll keep an eye on this. We'll talk to you next time.